Hey guys, Alex from 7th Hour Films back again with Dr. Stone. Last time around we had two nations of the Stone World, where they were able to revive Senku by depetrifying the last little bit of stone that's on his neck, and yeah, they were able to bring him back. I don't know if you can hear this. I don't think you can. I don't think it's loud enough to pick up on the mic. It is really windy outside today, so yeah, if you hear, like, well, wind or, like, creaking and stuff, that's what that is. And if I look like I'm distracted, that's what I'm being distracted by. Anyway, so yeah, they revived Senku, and then they came up with a plan that Taiju and Yuzuriha were going to infiltrate the nation of Tsukasa and basically join his ranks as spies, while Senku was going to go find the person that lit up the smoke signals and see if he can recruit them in the war against Tsukasa. And sure enough, the young girl who set up the smoke signals, her name is Kohaku, and she tried to attack Tsukasa, but it didn't work. She ended up getting trapped under a tree, and when Tsukasa left, Senku came up and helped her, and she basically swore loyalty to him. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty dope. I really like Kohaku immediately. So yeah, that is pretty much where we left off. Like always, the reaction is down in the description and in the pinned comment for your viewing pleasure. So let's go ahead and jump right into this episode of Dr. Stone. Here we go. Science bros! I mean, I do miss Taiju and Yuzuriha, but I like these guys. So I guess we can look up voice actors, even though I already got one of them. All right. We didn't even look up Kohaku, so I guess we can do that real quick. We'll do some, like, quick cut aheads to when I get to them. So let's see. We've got Felicia Angel as the voice of Kohaku. She voices Hagakure in My Hero Academia, and that's all I got. Great. That's all I recognize. So next there's Kinro, Jesse James Grill. Oh yeah, it's the voice of Armin in Attack on Titan and Tokoyami in My Hero Academia. So that's good. Alright. Next is Kinro and Ginro. And Justin Brenner. Yeah, okay. I thought he sounded familiar. Justin Brenner, who is the voice of Deku in My Hero Academia. So then Chrome is Matt Shipman. I called it. I called it. So let's see. So man, okay. So one of his first roles was in Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 as Shay. So that's why I always recognize his voice, because it's so, like, when he starts yelling, it's just, I know it. So he was also Flock in Attack on Titan. I feel like there was something else recently. I guess not. I could have sworn I heard him in something else recently. No, okay. Now I remember what I'm thinking of. So this is kind of funny. I haven't heard him in anything recently. What I did recently was I read a manga. Well, technically it was a manhwa, if that's how you pronounce it. And I used his voice in my head. Okay, let me just say, I tried reading Solo Leveling recently. I got about 30 chapters in, and then I got really bored, so I quit. But I used his voice as the voice of Sung Jin Woo. That's what I'm thinking of, and that's such a specific thing. So the other thing is Ruri. That's so funny that is like, oh, he's concerned about Ruri, even though in Arc 5 it was Lulu, so that doesn't matter, but still. Kristen McGuire? Do I know her from anything? Erica Coase in Kaguya-sama. I don't recognize that character, unfortunately. She was the dub voice of Akane Kurokawa in Oshinoko. That's something. I did not watch the dub of Oshinoko, but still. I guess that's it. So, I guess that's all we got for this episode. So, but still, always fun to look up voice actors. So, but Matt Shipman, definitely. It's like, man, I recognize his voice like 20 miles away. Like, it's so distinct, you know? Especially when he starts yelling. When he starts yelling, I expect him to start, busting out some Raid Raptors, you know? That's so great. I love hearing him in other stuff. Especially voice actors from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dubs. I love hearing them in other things, because sometimes I swear these Yu-Gi-Oh! Voice actors don't get other work, and it's sad. But Matt Shipman, he's still doing stuff. So, alright, so Kohaku's tribe, the rest of the lions. I mean, that's the thing. Like, when she gets offended of like, oh, I'm not a lioness. It's like, no, but that's like a good thing. It's fine, you know. That's like a good thing. I don't know. Her relationship with Senku is also kind of funny, because it's just like I'm kind of glad it's not a thing of like, oh, she's in love with him immediately. It's like, no, she likes him as a person, and thinks that the two of them can work together. So I do like that. I like how they work, and I like all the others. There's the fact that there's a whole village. It's so interesting because we don't know currently, like, how this village exists. Like, was it that? I mean, so I posited last episode. I think it was last episode, or maybe it was a little before that. That it's just it was last episode, because that's when we started to hear about Kohaku not being one of the petrified. So it's interesting that it's like, okay, well, how did that work? I generally went for last episode that, some people just were not petrified 3,700 years ago. But that doesn't seem to be the case, It's more likely that, maybe even 100 or 200 years ago, a long time ago, from this point right now, someone else was able to be depetrified in the same way that Senku was, So, yeah. But it's interesting. I mean, if anything, it's just like, okay, so if maybe a couple people depetrified, and then they went to... They went and they formed this village on an island, too. Which, I mean, that is pretty safe, like, from, animal predators and stuff, because I mean, we've seen the boys have to deal with lions and stuff, but on an island, if there's nothing else there, then that is pretty safe. But these were not scientists that were able to work, basically. They were not able to do the things that Senku can do, which is interesting, because like, if I had like depetrified and I was by myself, and I would just be, well, first off, I'd probably just fucking die, because I'm fucking out of shape, you can tell that, but at the same time, it's just like, I would not know the first thing about science. Like, I could maybe get a fire going and stuff, like, but I could not do the things that he does, down to, like, I can't make soap. He's out here, he can make soap, and then he can blow bubbles, which is funny. I like that was the way of impressing them, was just with some bubbles. But then, Chrome, interesting character, that he's sort of the sorcerer, the scientist of this village. He has this scientific curiosity, basically. And while he cannot, he doesn't have the scientific knowledge that Senku does, still, it's something. He has something there, and I like that. I like how that works. I like how he has a shed, basically, with just a collection of all these interesting things. It's just like, okay, he has some base knowledge of, just from observation of what each of these things can do. And then Senku comes in and is like, oh, we can do even more with this stuff. This is some good stuff you got. And then, of course, it's funny because, Kohaku is just sitting there, is like, I don't know, these are just rocks. Jesus Christ, Kohaku. They're minerals, you know? But yeah, I mean, it's like that for any collection, you know? It's like that for any question or collection where it's just like, if you don't know anything about this, you're just gonna be like, I don't know, this all looks the fucking same to me, you know? I got a ton of video games right over here, and a person who doesn't play video games will just be like, yeah, that's a lot of video games, you know? They don't know the difference between Okami and Pokemon Conquest and no, those are DVDs. The Ed Wood DVD or the Plan 9 from Outer Space DVD. Why do I own that? I don't know. I don't know when I got that. But anyway, yeah, so it's just like, you know, you look at all this stuff, or I mean, maybe I don't know. Or I don't know. I guess we all understand what I'm trying to say. I don't need to try to make different analogies, but yeah, but I like that, and I like you know, obviously we're going to have to see, you know, how will Senku be allowed into the village? You know, when are the villagers going to allow Senku in, you know? Because it's an interesting thing, too, where it's just like, you know, it's like, this does imply that there are others, you know? There are others out there that aren't a part of this village because, you know, as they said, there are outsiders, and what they said basically was people that were cast out by the village elder. So, for being, like, criminals and stuff. And it's like, okay, so there's some dangerous folks out there. Maybe Tsukasa and Taiju and Yuzuriha are going to run into them at some point, you know? So, I don't know. We'll have to see on that, but yeah, it is an interesting thing, but now we're just kind of left with like, okay, so how is Senku going to get in? Because Senku has to get in at some point, especially he needs to see what condition Ruri is in and see like what is her actual ailment and how, you know, how can, you know, they fix that. And I like that it's just like, you know, Chrome has all these, you know, different, you know, herbs and stuff like that, and it's like, well, this is, you know, the basis of medicine right here. These are essentially drugs, but it's just like he doesn't know what to do with them, you know? He doesn't know which ones do what. Like, he's tried testing them on himself, but he hasn't gotten very far with that, you know? That definitely reminds me of just Mao testing shit on herself, you know? Just to see. Granted, a lot of times, poison. A lot of times it's just poison, but yeah, but for him, it's like, well, he takes these herbs and it's like, okay, well, I kind of know stuff, but unless you have a specific, you know, sickness or disease, and then you use the right thing, it's just like, and even then, how does he know if he's using it correctly, you know? How does he know how to use it? He doesn't at this point, so yeah, it's just like, he doesn't really know, but thankfully, Senku is there. He can figure it out. He does know what a lot of this stuff does, and most likely he can create antibiotics in order to help Ruri. And help all of them, because, I mean, that'll just help everybody. And still, it's like, you know, assuming they are descended from people who were petrified, you know, those people had immunities, you know, and a lot of those immunities would be passed on to children, you know. But I imagine, you know, I mean, the thing, though, is they don't have shots, you know? They don't have vaccines and stuff that you take when you're a kid, so you don't get killed by a disease that we figured out 100 fucking years ago. But, you know, they don't have that. They don't have that in the stone world. So it's definitely a challenge, but just antibiotics, you know, in the same way that, you know, that Senku said, just soap is going to be, you know, incredibly important. There are no doctors, there's no cure-alls, there's no nothing. It's like, so we need to keep shit clean with soap, you know? So, it's Dr. Stone. It's Dr. Stone. So, but yeah. But we got Science Bros. Man, I have never been as excited about science as I am with this show. Like, I am not a science guy. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've watched Bill Nye the Science Guy. But like I've said, most science classes I friggin' hated in school, you know? I was never the science kid. My brother was more of a science kid, but I wasn't. I was more just of a... I preferred history classes. Not that he didn't like history classes. It doesn't matter. But yeah, but this is like the most I've been excited about science. And probably because there is a bit of history mixed into it, you know? With seeing how all of this, you know, evolved all those years ago with the human race, and now how we have to replicate that. So yeah, as Senku would say, get excited. So I love that that's his catchphrase. It's fun. So, but yeah, that is basically it. With all of that being said, I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of my Dr. Stone reactions, as well as another video you can go click on if you want. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.